Hi, good afternoon. It's Brian here from Belvoir. I just wanted to give you a quick recap on how the property market has performed throughout 2021 and also to have a look forward as what we feel may happen in 2022. So we all know what 2021 is like. We've had lockdowns, recessions, and the impact of COVID kind of really bit home during the last 12 months. But despite all of that, it has been a record year for the property market, both here in Southampton and across the UK. Nationally, we expect over 1.5 million transactions to have been completed. That's a substantial number. That's up 47% on 2020 levels, and it's at its highest level since 2007, which is just prior to the financial crisis. It's up some 25% on the long-term average for transactions, which currently stands at around 1.2 million. First-time buyers accounted for 400,000 of those transactions, and that's up 25% on 2020 levels. So first-time buyers really got into the market despite the increases we've seen. The average house price now, according to Halifax, stands at about £273,000, which is an uplift of 8.2% over the previous 12 months. And that their numbers are up until November. Nationwide, they've just reported numbers. They show an increase at 10.4%, and the Office of National Statistics 10.2%. So we can see there's kind of a consistency there that house prices across the UK have increased by in around the 10% mark. Clearly, you have regional variations, and here in Southampton, we also have those significant variations as well. The average price now for a first-time buyer property is £223,000, and that actually is an increase of 9% year on year. There are a lot of reasons for the increases. We would put it down to a number of factors. Mainly, there's been a lot of pent-up demand following the lockdown. The change which COVID and lockdowns has brought towards home working and homeschooling has driven a need for more space and how we use that space within the properties. Smaller factors also, people have got a lot of pets during lockdown. They now have a requirement for more space, bigger gardens to house their pets as the pets start to get bigger. Clearly, major driving force within the property market has been the stamp duty holiday, which Rishi Sunak announced, and a lot of buyers brought forward their purchasing decisions to benefit from those the stamp duty holiday, and effectively on a £500,000 purchase there was a £15,000 saving, so not to be sniffed at, and a lot of people brought forward those decisions also to get more space because of lockdown and home working, etc., but to benefit from that tax benefit. We've also seen, and we've benefited here in Southampton as well from that, where there's been a move from larger cities such as London, where people want to improve their quality of life. They're now working more from home, and they've looked to move out of the bigger cities. They get better bang for their buck locally, and they get a better quality of life. The other factor which has remained pretty much all the way through 2021 has been the historical low interest rates. They've been down at 0.1%. They were increased recently up to 0.25%. And the fact is they probably will increase further as we go through the year. But they would be the key drivers that we see that have kind of moved the property market forward in the way that it's actually gone. Over the last 18 months, we have seen a massive increase in demand, and again prices have increased because supply hasn't kept pace. There's been a shortage of homes coming onto the market. Locally here in Southampton, whether we're looking at properties in Chandler's Ford, Hedge End, Eastleigh, Centre Southampton, Chilworth, we've seen huge numbers of buyers registered for any property we bring to the market, and invariably that property is sold very quickly, generally at in excess of asking price. And even now, good quality homes in those locations will always sell very, very well. Perhaps one segment of the market which hasn't performed as well as we would have hoped would have been the apartment market. The apartment market has really had a drag effect from the whole Grenfell Tower tragedy, where Cladding issues were highlighted. We have a good number of blocks, unfortunately, in Southampton where there are significant cladding and fire safety issues. Those properties don't have an EWS1 form, which means that they can't be mortgaged. So effectively, your buyer is either a cash buyer, and obviously they're going to look for a significant discount because they may not be aware of the extent of the cost for the remedial action. Effectively the property is unsaleable and certainly not mortgageable. So that has had a knock-on effect across the wider market, even for properties where there are no fire safety issues and there are no cladding issues. It still has a knock-on effect. Some of that is down to we're seeing increasing service charges in our apartment blocks, and we're also seeing part of that increased service charges is insurance costs. We've seen insurance costs for some of the blocks we manage go up by 2 or 3 times in the 12-month period. So look, that was 2021, really strong year for the property market. But one of the questions we always get asked by our buyers, our sellers, our investors, our landlords is, look, what's going to happen in 2022? The one thing which we can say about 2022 is there is a lot of uncertainty. We look back at 21 and say, look, it was frantic, really frantic, a lot of activity. This 12 months coming really looks like just a huge amount of uncertainty. And if we look at those main pillars of uncertainty, inflation is going to be top of the list. We have inflation which has reached 5.1% in November, and the expectation is it'll probably go higher as we go into further into this year before it'll start to come back a little bit. The interest rates are rising. We've seen the increases up to 0.25%, and the anticipation is that they'll probably go up to maybe 0.75% as we get towards the back end of this year. And again, they could go further depending on what happens in the economy with inflation, etc. The big one, obviously, is the ongoing pandemic. COVID isn't over. We've seen that with Omicron. It's continuing to have an impact. We've got various guidance and stuff from the government. It affects the UK in different areas as each region takes up their own stance on it. But it is having an impact. It's affecting our hospitality sectors, which affects demand and people's certainty about whether they will move or not move. So that is, again, kind of watch this space, see how it transpires this year, in the early part of this quarter. And then hopefully as we get through the summer, like last summer, it'll die down. But then what's going to happen again in autumn next year, whether we get another variant that comes through. Cost of living squeeze is a big issue. We're seeing prices increase day by day, whether it's petrol, fuel. If you're doing any refurbishment, rebuild works on your home, you'll know the cost of timber, plasterboard, etc. Everything is increasing substantially. That impacts on people's ability to borrow, their affordability, because they're spending more on the general household items and the like. So that is going to have an impact. The economic growth that the country is experiencing, again, last year, 2021, was one of the few years where there was a complete separation from the economic position and the property market. They tend to mirror each other. So when the economy is down, property market tends to be down. Economy is strong, property market tends to be strong. Last year, we had a very weak economy in recession, but we'd have a property market which was forging ahead. This year, I think they'll come back more together. The pent-up demand is gone following lockdown, so we need to keep an eye on what the economic position is going to hold. And then ultimately, one of the other drivers is just the availability of stock on the market. Towards the last quarter of 2021, we started to see a shortage of stock coming on. We have multiple sellers who want to sell their property, but they will not bring it to the market because they haven't been able to secure a property that they can move into, and they don't feel confident that they will be able to source that property. So they are going to be factors which will impact how the property market is going to behave over the coming year. We do believe that the transactions, they're not going to be at 1.5 million. Frantic year last year. We think they'll be at the 1.1, 1.2 million. So back to a more normal year. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what's going to actually happen. When we look at the consensus view of where we think the market is going to be, we've looked at RICS, Rightmove and Zoopla. All of them are broadly going, we think it's going to be in the 3 to 5% range for the growth within the property market throughout 2022. We feel that's about right. I think again in Southampton we will have significant variations. We've strong demand in Chandler's Ford, we've strong demands in Chilworth, Warsash, Bittern. You know, there are areas where certain property types will really perform well and will outshine the market, as we've already seen this year. The continued upward pressure is going to be driven to a large degree by the lack of stock. The more stock that comes on, I think we will see the market respond to that. But we don't really anticipate over the next probably 6 months, so Q1, Q2 of this year, we think will be pretty much low stock. We anticipate that will start to free up as we get into Q3 and Q4 of this year. We do have to watch, because if we get to a point where there is just such a shortage of stock, most people will decide to reappraise what they want to do with their property. They may decide, look, it's just too much hassle to get a source of new property. So what we will do is we'll stay put. That's a conscious decision, and we'll refurb, we'll extend. So they're making a plan to stay in that property probably for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that could slow down the market a bit. So there are a lot of variables that are there. I think it's going to be a really exciting year in the property market because of all those uncertainties and those variables. And we, as agents, have to react to what's happening in the marketplace to ensure we maximize the value for all our clients. So look, if you're considering selling a property, buying a property, are looking to invest in the market here in Southampton, Chandler's Ford and the greater Southampton area, please do give us a call. We'd love to have a coffee with you, have a chat and see how we can assist you in your plans for 2022. So that's Brian from Belvoir. Thank you very much.